Oh, welcome into the second Dynasty rookie review for the running backs. We've already gone over 8 running backs, and we got 8 more for you today. So we're going a little deep. Everyone says it's not a super deep running back class. It's definitely not as top heavy. You're not going to get 2 top 15 picks. We're probably not even going to get a first rounder this year, but there's some interesting guys. I think it might be deeper than we think. I think there might be some gems that are found in this third, fourth round. So Dad, Senior Bowl practices this week. Have you heard anything with running backs in general about guys impressing? I think I've heard one or two, but not a whole lot.
No, I haven't, unfortunately. So today's Thursday. It's the last. I DVR'd a couple of practices. I watched some of the linemen, offense and defense go one-on-one. I always kind of like that type of stuff. And
Yep.
I haven't, I know there's a lot of talk about the quarterbacks, and, there's Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. and stuff like that. I haven't heard anything about running backs. I did hear about one receiver from Michigan, Roman Wilson.
Yep.
The running backs, no, I'm trying to pay attention, but I haven't heard anything yet. But I totally agree with you about the overall running back class. And yeah, we probably don't have a Gibbs and stuff like that. But there's some damn good running backs. They're gonna do well in the NFL. You're gonna need opportunity and stuff like that. Get on teams that they're gonna use you properly. But there's some guys there. So everybody, don't listen to Mel Kiper and all those other idiots. Listen to us.
Yeah. No, there's definitely going to be some gems for sure. And if you just think about it, and you look at the running backs that have been producing for fantasy the last couple years are getting old. Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook from 2022. This last year, Mostert, Joe Mixon. These guys are getting old, and teams are going to need to replenish. There was a huge, 2017? That running back class was amazing. Those guys are now old. They're falling off. So
yeah,
I think that's something that's a little underrated.
And that's a good point. That's good data, and those names. We go, yeah. But they're not going to be there anymore. And most of them didn't have great years. This past year, but yeah. So we're gonna have to. It's out with the old and in with the new, and it happens pretty quickly with running backs in the NFL.
Yep. Kamara is another one of those guys. So could they be good this year? Of course, but there's definitely going to need some replenishing. So I did hear a couple of names in the running back room for these running backs actually for Senior Bowl stuff. So the first one I've heard some positive things. And someone we both really like is Ray Davis. Maybe you see his name listed as Raymond from Kentucky. So he his last year at Kentucky, last couple of years, he played in Vanderbilt. He's played at 3 schools, Temple, Vanderbilt, and then Kentucky in his last year. His last 2 years have been very productive. He's had over 1,000 yards rushing both of the last 2 years, basically 30 catches each of the last 2 years. There's a lot for a college running back. So what did you think looking at Raymond Davis?
Yeah, just looking at his profile picture on ESPN, you just it's like they got these guys that have these big, thick shoulders and neck, and that looks like a running back. Like this guy's like 5'10", 216, and he runs with some authority. And the last couple of years, I think he's 23 years old, so he's had a lot of use in college. And you pointed it out. The teams he was with, and now he's 24 years old. He did have, he did 1,129 yards. Well, 280 of it came versus Florida. He was, so he had a huge game, but. He looks the part. It just looks good, and hard to bring down. And some of these guys, they don't necessarily, there's a lot of passing going on, so they don't teams are not as running as much, and but he looked the part in the in the passing game also. Can catch the ball out of the backfield, nice and fluid and stuff like that. So, yeah, Ray Davis, man, that's I don't know where he's going to end up, but you're going to hear about him either next year in the NFL or the year after that. Sometimes it takes a couple of years on guys. And I know we want instant gratification, when we draft these rookies, but it doesn't always happen. So stay patient.
Yeah, I really liked him. He's kind of my new favorite. Not saying I think he's the best prospect in the class, but he's just someone I'm going to be targeting in that third round of Dynasty rookie drafts of just, I think he may slip through the cracks a little bit. He is, like you mentioned, 24 years old. He turned 24 in November. So that's old for a running back, and that's probably going to dock him around in the NFL draft. But, if we're drafting someone in a Dynasty rookie draft in the third round, we don't care. If we get 2 good years out of him, we're happy, no matter who it is. So, he just seems to always make the first guy miss. That's kind of something I noticed. Like the first guy never brought him down. His good breakaway speed, he's not super fast. I think they estimate him into like the mid to low 4.5. So that's just good enough. It's kind of where you want to be at worst, getting close to mid 4.5s. But yeah, great, perfect size. Like you said, like 5'10", 215, 220, right around there. And yeah, he could just his cut moves are pretty amazing. His lateral movement. So I really liked him. Be fun to see where he goes in the draft. If he gets into a nice spot, I think he can fit a lot of running systems too. He played at 3 different schools, which is almost unheard of in college. So he can fit a bunch of different running styles. If it's more of a power, if more zone, I think he can kind of fit that. And yeah, he can catch the ball pretty reliably. So, is he top tier speed? No, but we saw that with Kyron. You don't necessarily need that each year. So, or, for each running back, as long as you have good vision and can make guys miss. So yeah, super excited about him. Marshawn Lloyd is another one from USC who looked good. I've heard his name being talked about at the Senior Bowl in terms of impressing. He went to USC. Just pulling up his numbers here. He was pretty productive. They didn't use him as much. Caleb was there, so
yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Just looking at his game log, they just didn't feed the guy a lot, but he had okay games, but when you're only getting the ball 8, 9, 7 times a game, that's not good for a running back. So there was only 4 games where he had double-digit carries, but sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, they do a lot of RPOs. Caleb Williams was there. Obviously, that was their bread and butter was him. So, he played in South Carolina and USC this last year. Yeah, only 116 carries, which is not a lot in 11 games, 116 carries. About just over 10 a game. So, but he averaged over 7 yards a carry. He caught 13 passes. Yeah, I was kind of impressed with him. His high school estimated 40 time is actually a mid 4.4, so that's really good. He just, he has decent size. He's 5'9", almost 220, I think. He can pick up the blitz. I've been hearing about, and kind of showed as well that passed the ball a lot. So he was used in pass protection a lot. Just a nice blend of power, speed.
Yeah, there was some. He did have a physical running attribute, he didn't mind running through people and stuff like that. I know they said 5'9" and 210 and is what I got, and he just somehow he looked bigger. I don't know. He looked a little taller, so I don't know what his actual measurables will be.
Yeah, there's always you see 5'9", 210, a pro football reference. The college page is 5'9", 215. This another page I'm looking at is 5'9", 217. So maybe the height we have a good idea. So he the weight we just never really know. So I think he's a solid player. Like he's up there with just like I'm really happy depending on where he goes draft capital wise. If he's a 4th-round pick, I'm really happy to spend. This is a guy I can easily see just kind of take over a backfield for a team that needs to, plug someone in, and he can do it all to a certain extent. He's just turned 23, so that's not too old. He's a young 23, and the fact that he can protect in pass protect is going to be huge. That's going to get him on the field for sure. So good burst overall, and he could be something I saw was like he could be a little hesitant at times at the line, but once he gets into the open field, he has some good moves for sure. And I've been hearing good things about him. So anything else on Marshawn Lloyd? You kind of like him as well?
Yeah, I just think he needs a little more opportunity, and he should fit into an NFL backfield somewhere.
Yep, indeed. And we're going to get back into these guys probably after the combine, maybe in March and April. We're going to get back into all these guys and go even deeper. These are kind of first impressions of all these guys. Next one is Dylan. I was looking up how to say it. I think it's
Luby.
Luby. Is it Luby?
Luby, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what I heard it called on YouTube. Dylan Luby, Luby left, Luby right,
Yeah, you're right. Now I do remember them saying that. Went to New Hampshire, so very small, not a big time school at all. So, he's playing guys like Dartmouth and Albany, right? So, but this guy is really intriguing in terms of his versatility. You look up some of his stats. I think he caught like 60 balls.
68 passes he caught last year, which is unbelievable for a college running back. 49 the year before. So plus rushing for 715 yards last year, and then 1,200 yards his junior year in 2022. So, man, that tells you right there versatility. In his average pass was 10.3 yards, which is that's quite a bit. Usually it's like 7 yards or something like that. But so he a lot of usage. He's a senior, 5'10", 207. He's not playing the big boys. I'm sure he's gonna probably his physical attributes, maybe his testing, maybe his 40 time and his jumping and all that other crap may not be great. So, but this guy just kind of looks like a good football player.
Yeah, he does. Exactly. He's just a football player, and someone's going to fall in love with him, I think, and use him in that versatile way. Like the guy lined up at receiver and, again, catching all those passes, like, it's really valuable. It kind of fits what today's NFL is a little bit. So
would you give a comparison of Austin Eckler to this guy?
Yeah, maybe. I'm wondering if he could be like Austin Eckler this last year not so good, but taking on the full workload, right? Like he was the only guy. Like can he?
Well, it took Eckler a few years to get to that point, though.
Did. Yep. No, it did. Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to see kind of comparisons and think about it. I just don't know if he's going to be 15 carries, and 5 catches a game. I don't know if he's going to get to that level. But he has good speed. He runs in the mid 4.4s, the projected mid 4.4s. Decent size, 5'10", 210. Like that's not terrible. And I've been hearing his name at the Senior Bowl. People have been talking him up a little bit. So I just think he's going to be able to do everything. Like he's going to he's going to play special teams. He can return kicks. I think he was like a All-American team as a return specialist as well. Like the guy kind of did everything as a punt returner, kick returner. That versatility is really going to be attractive to him. So to teams, I should say. One negative I would say he did, and he got away with it at New Hampshire. He did seem to go outside a lot, like bounce it outside, and you just don't get away with that in the NFL. You can do that at New Hampshire, where he was probably one of the obviously he was like one of the best players in the conference. So you're gonna have to learn you got to go run north south sometimes. Like taking the 3 yards is fine at times. But yeah, I think he can just be a playmaker. What do you think? Do you kind of think he can fit that Eckler role maybe the first couple years at least?
Yeah, that's just thinking of how Eckler's path to the NFL, undrafted. I don't know if this guy's going to be undrafted or not. And then he found a role with the Chargers, and all those things that you said, are true. Eckler played special teams there for a couple years, and I don't know. So we'll just see how it pans out. And Austin Eckler, his opportunity came when Melvin Gordon decided, that he was going to sit out a half a year over a contract complaint, contract dispute. So, and then Melvin Gordon's out of there, and eventually, and Austin Eckler took over. So,
yeah, no, for sure. He's kind of like, we looked at Will Shipley in the last video, and I think he's kind of like a better version of him, just like that versatile weapon. So, yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where he goes and see if he starts rising up boards a little bit. Like, again, even if like a team's going to approach it of like, all right, we're in the 4th round, we're in the 5th round. This guy can at the very least be a special teams player with the upside of being more. Teams are going to value that. Like, special teams is pretty valuable to be able to play that. So, yeah, super intrigued to follow how he does. Next guy we have here is Kimani. Is it Vidal or Vidal? I forget as well.
Vidal, yeah, Vidal.
He's
Vidal.
The one. Yeah, he's the one. He went to Troy. He's the one I'm actually hearing the most about in the Senior Bowl. Again, I haven't watched the practices myself, but I've kind of been reading some news, and he's the one that I've seen like the biggest riser. Maybe because he's kind of relatively unknown, but he was kind of the workhorse there for Troy. The last 2 years, he had 1,600 yards. This last year, 18 catches as well, which is good. What did you think of him?
Yeah, he, just watching him, some of his highlight games, and he had one of those huge games versus Appalachian State, 233 yards. I thought he rushed 16. Did he lead the country in yardage? Yeah, he might have. He was close. It was either him or another guy. I can't remember. But this guy, he's kind of a north-south runner, That's what – and what does that mean? That means, okay, you get the handoff, and there's not a lot of not a lot of left, right, and all that other stuff. You get the ball, and you're hitting the hole and stuff like that, So – that's just what I seen in college, and he looked. Troy. We know they're not playing big names and stuff like that, and but he's had a lot of. He played 4 years. He had a lot of usage. Started with 516 yards and ended up with 1,661 yards his senior year. So.
Yeah, a lot of production there. Yeah, he's an interesting one because I want to go back and watch him more, especially now that I'm hearing the buzz around him at the Senior Bowl. Because I first watched him, I was like, okay, he seems solid. He's a good burst. Nothing like jumped off the screen. I didn't see like a whole lot that's going to be like, okay, this guy's going to translate. He's going to translate and be a stud. It's like, yeah, I can see him being just like, he has an 8-year career, and when he gets his opportunity due to an injury to the starter, he produces, but he's never going to be like this amazing guy that's going to take the job and be the clear-cut number one guy but again, this is kind of an overview. We need to dive deeper into it, and I'm definitely going to go back and look more at him now that I hear the buzz, and Yeah, it's just like you said, he is that north-south guy, very compact type of runner. And he's not a huge guy. I see 5'8", 215. So he's not a huge guy, but he's very compact. And, he's in space. He's not this amazing player, but he can get you kind of the no-nonsense, you need 4 yards, he'll get it for you kind of player. So, I'll definitely go back and watch more of him. So, anything else on him, or do you want to move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay, so the next one was Cody Schrader from Missouri. He was 8th in Heisman voting. I didn't realize that. I just saw that on his page. He had a big year, 1,627 yards, 22 catches, 14 touchdowns. So he was only played 2 years at Missouri. I don't know if he's just announcing early or not, but what did you think of Cody Schrader when you saw him?
Yeah, I watched his I watched his bowl game versus I know it was against Ohio State, and Ohio State didn't have all their good players. And boy, Missouri, they fed the ball to him a lot. So, looking at his senior year, he carried the ball 276 times. That's a lot. 1,627 yards, and he's good back. It's I'm kind of saying this jokingly, but that's not. I mean, just seeing that's not today's NCAA football. Usually, it's they're throwing the ball a lot and stuff like that, but they gave this guy the ball a lot, and he he's playing SEC football, so those 1,600 yards were against some very big teams, So we joke about, well, they don't play defense in college anymore. Well, some teams do, but he had 112 yards versus Georgia and stuff, so it's nothing. He looks fast enough. He's got just enough moves and make people miss and things like that. So it's good looking back here, Cody Schrader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be curious to see how he tests out, because I do see potential, 4.6 40 time. And that's when you start getting into, okay, like, are you going to, not saying it's impossible, again, always talk about it. Kyron Williams was a 4.6 guy. It's just it's a lot less common. It's not going to happen as much. A guy that runs a running back that runs a 4.6, it's not going to be a guy that you find to be very successful more often than not. So, he could fall due to that. Obviously, the workload, he could carry it, but he's not a big guy, like 5'9", 207. So it doesn't have a whole lot of explosiveness and speed. He's just, it could be a solid player. He does have good passing game skills, kind of a natural pass catcher and things like that. So it's just the lack of speed and explosiveness it concerns me a little bit to is it going to translate? Is a team going to give him the opportunity, or is he just going to be kind of all right, you're our RB2 or RB3, and that's kind of all he kind of lives up to. So combine, I think, will be big for Schrader. So 2 more here. Dylan Johnson is the next one from Washington, as we know. So he 6 foot 218 is what I'm saying. It's a little bit taller of a running back. Had some solid numbers at Washington. Obviously, Washington national championship and all that. He played at Mississippi State for his first 3 years, and then he got a big workload at Washington. 230 carries, almost 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 24 catches. Yeah, Dylan Johnson. What did you see from him here?
Yeah, and he had some pretty big games. He chewed up USC for 256 yards, pretty good, and he also had a good game against Oregon, and and if they fed him the ball quite a bit, so he had quite a workload. He carrying the ball. There was at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 games with over 20 carries. So he got hurt near the end of the year. He was hurt versus in the championship game. He got hurt versus Texas, the game before that. So we didn't get to see him at full go, but his last healthy game was versus Oregon on the 1st of December, and he had 152 yards. So I think he played, what'd you say, Mississippi State? So
Mississippi State.
Yeah. 6 foot, 218. 6 foot's slightly a little taller for a running back. You like him? Well, I don't know. I mean, ideal is like 5'10" or 5'9" or something like that. But he had a good senior year. His Mississippi State numbers were okay. Obviously, he thought he could go somewhere else and be the man, and he was in Washington. So he's just slightly a little. He's in the involved in the passing game and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I was just looking back at like his Mississippi State numbers because I'm always interested, like when you see guys, they don't really do anything until their 4th year in college or something. It could be slightly concerning. I was just looking back at Mississippi State. They just didn't run the ball. Like he actually led them. You look at his stats for Mississippi State. I don't think he had over 500 yards any of the years. One of those years he led the team in rushing, and the other 2 years he was like right there. It was like less than 100 yards separating him from the top rush. So Mississippi State just didn't run the ball. So that's why his numbers were pretty low. Again, interested to see because like obviously Washington, we saw a lot of games from them and being a good team. And, his measurables and his testing numbers, at least a lot of this is from high school, but they seem all kind of above average. His shuttle, his vertical, his 40, they all kind of seem like above average, which is fine. And he has that good, size, 220 almost. He's 6 foot, so he can probably put on even a little bit more weight if he wanted to. Really good in the as like a route runner, which is something I noticed. So he's another intriguing one where it's just like, man, I can see him doing something in the NFL for sure. Like, is he amazing? Is he super explosive and all of that? Not necessarily, but he's just a good, solid player that I just think can be a really good contributor to a team. So a lot of these guys, he does have very slow lateral movement, which is something I noticed. So in the open field, he's kind of like he gets downhill type of thing. Where once he gets free, he can take it to the house for sure. He has enough speed to kind of break away. So I'm just really curious about all these guys, like where they're going to go, because I see traits in a lot of them where I'm like, okay, I see something here. Last guy we're talking about is Frank Gore Jr., the son of Frank Gore, the probably Hall of Famer.
Holy crap. Didn't his dad just play like 2 years ago or something,
Yeah, he did. But I remember people talking 2020 was his last year. I remember people talking like, is he going to make it to play, the same time as his son? And
he
almost.
I disrespected Frank Gore his whole career, just thinking like, nah, and the way I did it is I ignored him on fantasy drafts, and that guy is money, and he had major injuries in both knees, and but if his son has half of his DNA or whatever, he's going to be something. So and he had some pretty good numbers at Southern Miss there, especially his last 2 years. Yeah,
for sure. Real quick on Frank Gore, just to highlight how long we've been playing fantasy. I remember you bought me a magazine and they had like this is in like June or July, like, oh, potential breakout. Frank Gore's first year, he only played in he only started one game. He had 600 yards rushing. He's like, oh, potential breakout Frank Gore. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, his second year was his best year, almost 1,700 yards. Just kind of
fun. And guess who his coach was that helped him break out?
Who was the coach then?
It was Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
I think,
in 2006, no, but.
No, okay.
In like the early 2010s, yeah.
Yeah, so, when Jim Harbaugh was the 49er coach, they would lean on Frank Gore a lot, so.
Yeah, and his son kind of runs like him, like that one cut. Frank Gore wasn't this amazing athlete, speed. He was just a good running back, like he was just you could almost count on him to get 1,100 yards and every year, at least. So at least before he got 30, he was playing at the age of 35 or whatever. But there's a reason why he lasted that long. And his son kind of plays that way. He's smaller. What is Frank Gore? Yeah, he's definitely smaller. He's 5'8", listed at just under 200 is what I see, which is obviously small for a running back, but he was the workhorse for Southern Miss for sure. Over 250 touches. I think he set the record with the most rushing yards, most total yards in that last game was against Rice. You mentioned 300. He had like 330 yards against Rice, which is crazy. Do you think he projects like he's gonna play in the NFL? I know PFF kind of likes him like as a top 10 running back in this class. Do you see?
Yeah, we'll see.
Being drafted?
We'll see. It's kind of hard to make it. Let's see where he fits into the combine testing and stuff like that. And if he's running, let's just say if he runs 4.5, that's a good number that we can work with. And you look at the tape, and you can't measure guys' hearts and all this other stuff, but Frank Gore Jr. or Frank Gore the second, he's definitely had. There's plenty of carries. There's plenty of there's plenty of tape on this guy and stuff like that. So,
yeah, for sure. Again, is he going to be the workhorse? I don't know. I don't know what that size of the team's going to give him the overall backfield, but he can catch the ball. He's a good blocker. He just seems like a nice, like, change of pace, multi-purpose type of back. So has good enough straight line speed. So it'd be interested. And I think I said he was our last one, but there's actually one more that we are talking about. That is Jace McClellan from Alabama, which, for a while there, we take every running back out of Alabama. A little bit not so great, though. You had Najee, Brian Robinson, good players, but Jace McClellan, what did you think about him? Who he was kind of 180 carries, so he wasn't their only guy or their main. He was their main guy, but he wasn't their only guy. They had another running back have over 100 carries as well. What'd you think of Jace McClellan?
Yeah, he just didn't seem to. I don't know if it was opportunity or that he didn't get as much. When the ball's in his hand and stuff like that, he looked good, but he just didn't have that. I don't know, that Alabama vibe to him or something, and I don't know if it's probably not related to him. Mm-hmm. He had 180 carries, and he's 5'11", 212, and it's just I think the Alabama offense in general, just it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't quite. Well, I know it wasn't quite the same this year, but they eventually got their crap together. It's kind of hard to say Alabama didn't have their crap together, but they were one or two plays away from playing for the national championship. But and Chase McClellan was the guy. So he just he didn't look like previous backs that we've seen,
Yeah.
and we just go back last year, Jahmyr Gibbs. So not even close of a comparison.
No. He's closer to he's not as big as Brian Robinson, but he does have that Brian Robinson feel.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes.
Yeah. It's just kind of he's solid, but nothing impressive, right? Like his speed is maybe just good enough, but he's not going to outrun everyone. He's not very shifty. He's more of a power guy between the tackles. Alabama, the route tree for most, unless you're Jahmyr Gibbs, the route tree for a running back at Alabama is not really going to be there that much. His pass protection wasn't that great. So he does have injury concerns. I think he had a torn ACL in 2021, and he had more injuries in 2023. So there's going to be durability concerns there. I don't know. He just doesn't. Nothing jumps off the page. Again, I said that about Brian Robinson, and all it took was one team to fall in love with Brian Robinson. They drafted him in the 3rd round, and then they gave him the workload this last year, and he was pretty good for fantasy. So, it takes one team like that. But yeah, nothing super impressive here. Definitely probably my least favorite guy that we looked at out of all 16 of them. We'll see. We'll see where he goes. And that's always going to be big. Draft capital is going to be big. How he tests is going to be big. So, overall, there's some guys here for sure. There's some potential gems. You'd agree, right?
Oh, definitely. There's, I think I've said this before. So, I'm kind of, it's where they get drafted and is there going to be opportunity for them and stuff like that. But it doesn't take much for these guys to get drafted to make the team. And let's say they're playing a little special teams or something like that, or they're the 2nd or the 3rd string running back, and all of a sudden injuries happen. We know they happen. So next thing week 6, week 8 next year, here's Chase McClellan, being the Carolina Panthers number 1 running back and runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, stuff like that happens.
Yeah, no, 100%. Opportunity is key for running backs, that's for sure. So we're going to finish. We're going to come back to these running backs and maybe probably a couple more that we didn't even look at that are going to pop up and name. Hype's going to start happening. So probably in March, but we're going to move on to receivers, which is seemingly a lot deeper. So it'll be fun to see. We'll be back with the receivers and then tight ends. So as always, like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys next time.